Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Today, I want to give you my review for Exuma. This is a film that came out earlier this year, but just became available to watch on Shudder. And this is a South Korean sort of supernatural type mystery horror film. And it tells the story of these four people who they're kind of like paranormal, supernatural healers. They do a lot of stuff with like grave excavations and try to help remove curses that are on people and things like that. One of the main characters, played by Min-sik Choi, who you may know from Oldboy, he is what's called a geomancer. And so what he does is he goes out and locates plots of land on good land with good soil for people to be buried. And so this group is contacted by this extremely wealthy man whose newborn baby boy is suffering some unknown ailment. And they determine that it has something to do with the grandfather. And so they have to locate the grandfather's grave and excavate the grave to do this sort of ritualistic curse removal. And when they excavate the grave, I'll just say all hell breaks loose. And so that gives us our basic setup. And one of the things that the film does that I really liked is the first half of the film does a good job kind of setting things up and introducing an intriguing premise, introducing some mystery, and creating just kind of a nice, mysterious, ominous, sort of creepy atmosphere and tone to the film. I like, too, that it touches on some of the kind of conflict between, science and religion in the natural world and the supernatural world and stuff like that, which is always interesting. I like that they introduce some like South Korean kind of ritualistic stuff here, some folklore stuff here as well. That's always kind of interesting just to see some of the cultural stuff there. There are elements of this movie that reminded me a little bit of another South Korean film called The Wailing. And so the way the film unfolded in the first half, I was on board with and enjoying. And then, like I said, you get to about the halfway point and the movie does something unexpected and it kind of takes a different direction. And from that point out, the film plays out in such a way to where it almost feels like this is two separate movies that are kind of forced together into one big movie. And the issue that I have with it is that I don't really know how the second half fully fits in with the first half of the movie. And so part of me wishes they would have just kind of continued along the trajectory of the opening half and maybe expanded it a little bit. Or they could have just kind of completely ditched that or severely edited it down and really just gone the direction that they go throughout the second half of the movie. And so, like I said, it feels like there's kind of two separate movies here that are tried to, fuse together into one big film. And ultimately, it just doesn't really work. The film sits at 2 hours and 15 minutes, which to me is way too long because I think you have two potential movies here that would be good at around, a 90, 95 minute runtime. But the way it is, they don't really just fit together. So we get to that halfway point in the film, and I'm like, okay, where do we go from here? And it kind of sets up something, and I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. But as the film progresses, it just becomes more and more its own separate, unique thing in the second half. And I'm constantly was thinking like, well, how does this fit in with what we've already gone through? Like, how does this fit in within the first half of the movie? Why are we now telling this story when we've already told this story? And so, yeah, like I said, it just doesn't really fuse together as one cohesive whole. And it's too bad because there is quite a bit of good stuff here that I really enjoyed. I like I'll just say, monster, creature, ghostly apparition, whatever you want to call it, that they reveal in the latter half of the film. Really creepy and unsettling and a pretty cool kind of, I guess, villain, so to speak. And so there is some stuff here that I enjoyed, but just overall, I don't really see how these two halves fit together. And that's really my main complaint with the movie. And my overall enjoyment was largely affected by that. And so there's not really any other complaints that I could make with it. I mean, the acting is on point and solid. It has some good atmosphere. I like the element of mystery that they go with here. But there's just two halves of this movie that don't really fit into a whole. And then once you get towards the end and them trying to kind of provide this explanation of how they're going to go about solving the problem and in defeating this villain, I'll just call it, it gets really convoluted and unnecessarily complex. And they're introducing all this kind of, I don't know, mythological type jargon that doesn't make sense. It just feels unnecessarily complicated. And so, yeah, it doesn't really kind of come together in the end. And again, it doesn't really fit with the first half of the film. And so overall, this one was a bit of a disappointment for me. It's one that I don't know that I can really say I would recommend. Overall, I'm probably still a touch more on the positive side than the negative side, but not by much. I'm probably going to be like 5.5 out of 10 for Exuma. So this one was a bit of a disappointment and a letdown for me because I'd seen some of the reviews for it and people have been largely pretty positive on it. But yeah, just for me personally, it just didn't really come together for me as a whole. Those are my thoughts on Exuma. Hit me up down below. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen this and how the two halves kind of fit together for you. Did you like that approach? Did it not work for you? Would love to hear from you. So that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.